Imagine, for a moment, that the universe is a great machine, not a clanking, cold contraption of steel and circuits, but a living mechanism made of motion itself, flowing, humming, shimmering with life. A cosmic computer, yes, but not one sitting somewhere in space with a plug and a fan. You are the plug. You are the fan. You are the current moving through the wires of being. Now, people today love to speak of simulations. They say perhaps we're living inside some grand program, a dream generated by entities far beyond our comprehension, post-human engineers, alien architects, or the universe itself, calculating every thought and heartbeat in bits and quanta. It's a curious notion, isn't it? For here we are, trying to imagine the code we're supposedly made of, and yet that very imagining is part of the code. So let's pause and ask, what does it even mean to say the universe is a machine? Because when we picture machines, we usually think of something, we build something separate from us. A car, a computer, a clock. We look at it, we tinker with it, we control it. But the universe is not that kind of machine. It's not something you stand outside of. It's a self-playing symphony. A process that observes itself through eyes, hears itself through ears, and thinks itself through thoughts. You see, the machine we speak of is made of patterns, not parts. Energy folding into matter, matter folding into life, life folding into mind, all turning, all dancing, all pretending to be separate things. Just as a whirlpool is made of water, yet is not the water itself, so you are a pattern in this vast motion, not apart from it, but arising within it. And the wonder of it is that the pattern is aware. It's conscious of its own turning. It dreams, and in the dream, it calls itself you. But here's the divine trick. The dreamer has forgotten that it dreams. It has fallen under the spell of its own design. The way an actor becomes lost in a role, or a painter steps into their own painting. The universe, you might say, has hypnotized itself. It has become so absorbed in this beautiful illusion of individuality that it begins to ask, who made this? Who runs the simulation? And the answer, whispered quietly by the stars, is, you did. For there was never a programmer sitting somewhere beyond creation typing the code of existence. The code writes itself, moment by moment, through every pair of eyes that see, every breath that moves. The dream and the dreamer are one and the same. When you speak, the universe vibrates. When you listen, it hears itself. When you think, it computes not because you're a little mind inside a big machine, but because the whole machine is thinking through you. And so before we rush to picture circuits and simulations, let's remember, even the image of the machine is another mask worn by the mystery. The so-called hardware of the cosmos is softer than we think, made not of silicon or metal, but of awareness. It runs not on electricity, but on curiosity. You are not trapped in the dream of the machine. You are the dream of the machine. And at the same time, you are the machine dreaming itself. So when people say, we might be living in a simulation, I laugh softly and say, my dear, that's what the sages have been telling you for thousands of years. The play has many names: Maya, Leela, illusion, game, dream. But the meaning is the same. Existence is a grand hide and seek, where the one becomes the many just to enjoy the game of remembering who it was. Now, this idea, if you feel it deeply, is not meant to scare you. It's meant to free you. Because once you see that you are both the code and the coder, both the puppet and the puppeteer, the tension dissolves. You no longer need to fight the simulation or escape it. You simply play. And play, my friends, is the secret of all creation. long before anyone dreamt of machines or simulations, long before men and women typed code into glowing boxes. There were others who told the same story, though they used the language of gods and dreams instead of quantum bits. In India, they called it Maya, the grand illusion. Not illusion as in deception, but illusion as in play. The divine pretending to be limited. The infinite slipping into a mask of finitude. They said that Brahman, the Eternal One, was so endlessly creative, so infinitely playful, that it decided to forget itself to become the world. The trees, the rivers, the sky, the stars, you, me, all fragments of the same infinite actor performing on the stage of time. And what a magnificent disguise! So perfect, so complete, that most of us never suspect the trick. We say, I am here and the world is out there, never realizing that the line we draw between the two is drawn by the same hand. Meanwhile, in China, the old master Zhuangzi dreamed he was a butterfly. And when he awoke, he wondered, was I Zhuangzi dreaming I was a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming that I am Zhuangzi? Now that is not a riddle to solve, you see. It's an invitation to notice that perhaps life is not what it appears to be. And in the West, Plato told of a cave, men chained before a wall, mistaking shadows for reality. But what he did not say, or perhaps what we forgot, is that when one of them finally turns around and walks out, blinking into the sunlight, the shadows were never the enemy. They were part of the same light all along. So whether you hear it from a Hindu sage, a Taoist poet, or a Greek philosopher, it's the same whisper echoing through time. You are dreaming. The world is the divine dreamer's masquerade. Of course, each civilization gave it a different costume. The Indians called it Brahman. The Taoists called it the Tao. The Greeks called it the Logos. And the Christians, when the poets and mystics had their way, called it the Word made flesh. But all of them were pointing toward the same thing, that behind this apparent multiplicity, there is one endless consciousness, watching, creating, and playing as all things. When the physicists of our day speak of energy, vibration, and interconnectedness, they are rediscovering what the mystics always knew, that there is no true boundary between subject and object, observer and observed. The universe is not a collection of separate pieces. It's one vast happening, a single gesture of being that looks at itself from every angle. Now, what's delightful is how this realization always comes dressed for its time. For the ancient mystic, it was a vision by the river. For the medieval saint, it was the voice of God. For the modern scientist, it's a formula, a field equation, or a shimmering pattern of data. And now, in our age of circuits and code, it comes back again, wearing the latest costume, the simulation. But the essence hasn't changed. The story repeats itself in new metaphors, because the truth can never be captured in one image. The divine, the universe, consciousness, whatever name you prefer, is forever trying on new masks, whispering the same joke. You thought this was real, didn't you? You see, the universe doesn't explain itself. It expresses itself. It sings. It dances. It dreams, and you are one of its dreams, dreaming back at it. So before we go further into our modern theories of computers and consciousness, let us bow for a moment to the old storytellers, to the saints and sages, to the butterflies and the prisoners in the cave, because they were the first programmers of reality. They didn't use machines, they used myth. And myth, you see, is the oldest software of the human mind. It is through these ancient stories that consciousness first learned to watch itself, and in doing so, to play. You know, a magician's trick only works when you forget you're watching a trick. The universe, in that sense, is the most marvelous magician of all. It doesn't merely fool you, it fools itself. Now, if this whole thing is the dream of the divine, the play of consciousness, why does it feel so extraordinarily real? Why does a cut hurt, a loss ache, a sunrise move you to tears? Because that's the genius of the game. It must be utterly believable, or it wouldn't be worth playing. You see, a dream becomes dull the moment you know it's a dream. But when you forget, oh, how rich the colors become, how real the laughter, how sharp the pain. That forgetting is not an error, it's the engine of creation. The one, desiring to experience itself as the many, hides behind its own eyes. And there it is you, looking back at yourself, wondering who's looking. The sages used to say that God fell asleep and dreamed the world. But what they left out, perhaps to see if you'd notice, is that the dream had to be convincing enough to make the sleeper cry out from within it. That cry of love, of fear, of longing, is consciousness remembering itself through you. Modern science has caught a whiff of this trick. Neuroscientists tell us that the brain constructs reality, that what you see isn't out there at all, but a simulation within your own skull, a carefully rendered virtual world built of electrical signals. And physicists tell us that matter itself is mostly empty space, that solidity is an illusion created by vibrating fields. So even the most rational among us are whispering the same old story in new language, that what we call the world is a projection of awareness, not its source. But the irony, of course, is that knowing this changes nothing. You can tell yourself all day, it's just a simulation, and the sunset will still take your breath away. Because the beauty of the illusion is that even when you know it's an illusion, it still shines. It's like a painting flat on the canvas, yet full of depth when you step back and look with wonder. So the question is not, how do I escape the simulation? The question is, can I see the trick and still enjoy the show? Can you taste the unreality of things without becoming cynical? Can you hold the knowledge that nothing lasts and still love as if it did? That's the balance of awakening. To see through the dream without falling out of love with it. For the moment you try to grasp reality, to hold it still, to make it certain it slips away, like water through your fingers. And yet, when you open your hands, you find the whole river flowing right through you. So what makes this simulation so convincing? You do, because you believe it not as a choice, but as an art. You're an artist painting yourself into existence, one perception at a time. The senses are your brush strokes, the body your canvas, and awareness the light behind it all. Every time you say, "This is real," you're casting a spell. And the spell works beautifully. It has to, or you'd stop believing in the story altogether. And without the story, there would be no laughter, no music, no you. The point is not to break the spell, but to wake up inside it, to become a lucid dreamer in the grand dream of being. Then everything becomes play again. The pleasure, the pain, the uncertainty, all shimmering as one movement of consciousness exploring itself. And when you glimpse that, even for a heartbeat, you realize that the simulation doesn't imprison you, it expresses you. It is your very own reflection, looking back with infinite eyes, asking softly, "Do you see me now?" Now, my dear friends, this is where the dream becomes deliciously tricky. For once the universe begins to dream itself as you and me, we immediately start naming things. We take this seamless, flowing mystery and we chop it up with words. This is self, that is world, this is real, that is imaginary. And it's a clever trick because language gives us the illusion of control. When you can name a thing, you think you know it. You think you've pinned the butterfly to the board. But, of course, the moment you do, it stops fluttering. You have the word, but you've lost the life. You see, this is what I mean when I say we've mistaken the code for the coder. We confuse the symbols with the substance, the representation with the reality. It's like falling in love with the menu instead of the meal, or mistaking the roadmap for the countryside. You can hold the map of Paris in your hands all day, but you won't taste a croissant that way. Science, religion, philosophy, they all do this in their own fashion. They are magnificent attempts, sincere and beautiful, but still attempts to describe what cannot be captured. The physicist writes his equations, the theologian his doctrines, the mystic his poems, and each one says, this is how it is. And yet, every one of them points at the moon with a different finger. But, as I've said before, if you spend all your time worshipping the finger, you'll miss the moon entirely. Now, this is not to scold science or scripture. They are maps, very good maps. The problem arises when we forget that they are not the territory. When we start to believe that the word water can quench our thirst, that the equation E equals mc squared explains why the sunset feels sacred, or that repeating the word God gives us the divine, we forget that every description, no matter how elegant, is still part of the simulation, a symbol within the dream. It's like a mirror trying to reflect itself. No matter how polished it becomes, it can never show you the one who's looking into it. Our languages, our codes, even our thoughts, they are mirrors. They shimmer with reflections of reality, but they are not the source of the light. The light is consciousness itself, the awareness that reads these words, hears these sounds, feels this moment. And so, we become lost in a labyrinth of our own making. We build religions, institutions, entire civilizations upon symbols, and then we forget that we made them. We start obeying our own inventions. We let the code run us. We forget that we are the ones who wrote it. Look around. Everything you call real, money, nationality, success, failure, is made of words, pieces of code we've agreed upon. And then, when we suffer because of them, we forget they were only stories. We take the story more seriously than the storyteller. That is the divine comedy. The universe writes poetry, and we take it as legislation. It sings, and we build a doctrine out of the lyrics. We take play for purpose, metaphor for measurement, and wonder why the world feels cold and mechanical. But reality isn't mechanical. It's musical. It moves not like a factory, but like a symphony. No machine could write this melody because the melody is the machine. Each of us is a note in its grand composition, and the score is written in the language of being, not in words or symbols, but in rhythm, flow, and silence. So, when we ask, who built this simulation, or who wrote the code of the cosmos, the answer is astonishingly simple and utterly confounding. The code and the coder are the same. The creator didn't step back after hitting run. It's still running as you. Every thought you think, every heartbeat, every ripple of emotion, that's the code, writing itself anew, endlessly, joyfully. And when you truly see that, you stop mistaking the equation for the experience, the scripture for the spirit, the finger for the moon. You stop trying to solve life and start living it. You taste the meal instead of memorizing the recipe. You look up and finally see the moon in all its silent, luminous glory. So, the problem was never the code. It was only our forgetfulness, our tendency to worship the symbol and ignore the source. But the moment you laugh at that, truly laugh, the spell begins to lift. And you remember, the dream and the dreamer were never two. So then, if this whole affair, this dream, this simulation, this astonishing carnival of consciousness is so marvelously complex, one can't help but ask, who's running it? Who sits behind the curtain? Who types the cosmic code, presses enter, and watches galaxies bloom like flowers on the screen of space? The mind, of course, rushes to imagine some grand engineer, an otherworldly figure in a glowing lab coat. perhaps orchestrating existence from a divine control room. That's our old habit of thought, isn't it? We always think in hierarchies. Someone up there pulling the levers, and the rest of us acting out the script. But let me suggest something infinitely more mischievous. What if the one running the show is you? Ah, not the you that needs coffee in the morning, nor the one that worries about taxes and tomorrow's errands. That poor fellow can barely keep track of his car keys, let alone a universe. No, I mean the real you, the one you glimpse between thoughts, the one that watches from behind the eyes, the one that never ages, never hurries, and never quite believes the mask it wears. That's the cosmic programmer. And here's the twist. The programmer didn't build this simulation for you, it built it as you. You are not some avatar wandering through a pre-written game. You are the awareness through which the game is played. The coder and the character are one continuous motion, a single breath, exhaling worlds. Think of an author writing a novel. Each character lives, breathes, loves, and dies inside that story. But the author is not trapped by them. The author is all of them, every hero, every villain, every whisper of wind between the lines. And the characters, though they appear separate, are all expressions of the same creative pulse. So, when you look around and ask, who made all this? The trees, the stars, the laughter, the pain. What you're really asking is, how did I forget I was doing this? Because the truth is, the game only works if you forget. If the author were always aware she was writing, the story would never feel alive. The only way for the divine to truly become you was to forget it was divine at all. And that forgetting, that holy amnesia, is what gives birth to the world. But every now and then, the programmer wakes up inside the program. Through a poem, a sunset, a deep breath, a sudden stillness, you see the code for what it is, not to escape it, but to marvel at its beauty. You realize that the player, the pixels, and the screen are all made of the same luminous awareness. People call this awakening. It's not an achievement, not something you earn or reach. It's more like a cosmic inside joke. The moment you laugh, you're in on it. You begin to notice that life is not happening to you, it's happening as you. The raindrop falling, the child crying, the thunder rolling, they're all notes in the same song. And you are the melody listening to itself. So who then runs the simulation? No one and everyone. It's not managed by an external deity, nor by some alien intelligence, nor by future humans in lab coats. It's self-running, self-generating, self-aware. The universe is not a factory, it's a fractal. Every part contains the pattern of the whole, and every being is an aperture through which the infinite looks out upon itself. When you speak, it's the cosmos talking to itself. When you think, it's consciousness debugging its own code. When you love, it's the programmer embracing its own reflection. And here's the marvelous secret. This programmer is not serious. It's playful, curious, experimental. It wants to see what happens when it forgets, when it remembers, when it laughs, when it cries. It is never bored because it is infinite. And infinity delights in surprise. So, you see, you don't need to find the cosmic engineer. You are it, right now, looking at its own handiwork. Every thought you have, every step you take, every sound you hear, it's the universe observing itself, tracing its own loops, whispering softly, ah yes, there I am again. When you see this, life becomes what it was always meant to be, a magnificent game, not of survival, but of exploration. And in that moment of realization, the search for the programmer ends, because you've found it in your own awareness. Have you ever had one of those moments when the whole thing seems to flicker? You're walking down the street, minding your own business, and suddenly you stop, as if the air itself winks at you. The light hits just right, the sound softens, and for a split second, everything feels strangely familiar, like déjà vu, or a memory you never lived. That's what I call a glitch in the game. Now, don't mistake it for an error. It's not a bug in the code, it's a reminder. A brief, shimmering crack in the illusion where the dream peeks at itself and says, "Ah, yes, I remember now." It can happen anywhere. In the eyes of a stranger, in the hush of a forest, in the quiet hum after laughter fades. For an instant, the walls between you and it dissolve, and everything becomes impossibly whole. The mind tries to explain it, of course. It must have been the lighting, a coincidence, a trick of memory. But the heart knows better. It felt the universe exhale through you. You see, the so-called glitches are the universe tapping its own shoulder. They're little ripples where the surface of time bends inward, where awareness remembers that it's dreaming. Some people call them synchronicities, others call them miracles, omens, signs. I call them winks, because that's what they feel like, a cosmic wink from the player behind the mask. And isn't it curious that they so often arrive in moments of surrender? You're not straining, not chasing enlightenment, not solving the mystery. You're just there. And suddenly the veil lifts. For one luminous breath, you are perfectly at home because you've remembered. You never left. Now, this isn't new. Mystics throughout history have stumbled upon these cracks in the dream. They call them revelations, awakenings, glimpses of the eternal. And yet, what's revealed is almost embarrassingly simple, that the one who sees the glitch is the glitch. You are the tear in the fabric through which infinity gazes back at itself. It's rather like the ocean discovering it's been looking for itself in waves. The wave rises, thinking, "I must find the sea." But when it pauses, it realizes it is the sea, temporarily pretending to be a wave. These strange little openings, déjà vu, synchronicity, moments of awe, are like whispers from that realization. They remind you that nothing here is as solid as it seems. Even your memories, your past and future, are threads of the same luminous fabric. Once you notice that, even for a moment, the whole simulation becomes translucent. You can still play the game, but now you know you're in on the joke. You no longer take the suffering quite so seriously, nor the triumphs too personally. You see it all as part of the dance, sometimes graceful, sometimes clumsy, but always divine, because even the so-called mistakes are part of the pattern. Every misstep, every heartbreak, every unexpected turn is coded into the flow to teach you one thing, that the game was never about winning. It was about seeing. And these glitches, these ripples in reality, are like checkpoints on that journey of seeing. They say, you're getting warmer. You don't need to chase them, though. They appear precisely when you stop chasing, when the mind grows still enough for the hum of the code to be heard. That hum has many names. Some call it silence, others the divine presence, or simply I am. But it's the same vibration, the awareness that watches, that listens, that dreams. And when you hear it, really hear it, the boundary between dreamer and dream dissolves. You realize that the simulation doesn't hide the truth, it expresses it. Every pixel, every heartbeat, every particle of dust floating in a beam of light is consciousness, shimmering with infinite intelligence. So, the next time the world flickers, when you catch that familiar shimmer of déjà vu, or a coincidence too perfect to be random, don't rush past it. Pause, smile. That's the programmer reminding you You're still logged in, but you were never really separate. You are both the glitch and the game, the code and the consciousness that writes it. And the beauty of it all is that the universe doesn't try to hide that fact. It reveals it constantly. In every blink, every breath, every ripple of being waiting for you to notice. At the center of all this play, this cosmic simulation, this grand dream, there's a sound. It isn't thunder, nor a choir of angels, nor the hum of machinery. It's laughter. Not the laughter of mockery, but the deep, rolling laughter of recognition, the kind that erupts when you suddenly see the joke you've been living all along. It's the laughter of God, of the cosmos, of you remembering that you've been pretending to be someone else. You see, the divine doesn't play this game because it must. It plays because it can. Creation isn't a duty. It's a delight. And what kind of artist would the universe be if it didn't get lost in its own masterpiece from time to time? That's the holy trick. The one becomes the many, forgets, searches, suffers, prays, hopes, and despairs, all to rediscover, with a burst of astonishment, that it was the one all along. And at that moment of rediscovery, what can you do but laugh? Because the cosmic drama is both utterly profound and completely absurd. You spend lifetimes chasing meaning, building philosophies, inventing religions, conquering fears, and in the end, the punchline hits. You were never apart from it. You were it, playing hide and seek with yourself. That is the laughter of awakening. It's not cruel, it's compassionate. It doesn't laugh at suffering, it laughs through it, seeing it as a temporary cloud passing across the sky of eternity. When you hear the sages of old chuckle quietly, it's not because they're aloof, it's because they've seen the divine prank in action. They've realized that even our seriousness, our need to control, to know, to win, is part of the comedy. The universe isn't laughing at you. It's laughing with you, because you are the laughter itself. Now you might ask, but why the pain, the tragedy, the horror of it all? Because every play needs contrast. Without night, there is no dawn. Without silence, there is no music. Without limitation, the infinite has nothing to explore. You see, bliss becomes possible only because of the possibility of its opposite. The divine trick is this: the same energy that burns the star also blooms the flower. The same force that makes you weep makes you fall in love. Suffering and joy are not enemies. They are partners in the dance. So when the cosmic comedian pulls a trick on you, a heartbreak, a loss, a failure, you might curse the heavens for a while, as we all do. But one day you look back and realize that even that pain was part of the choreography. That the divine wasn't punishing you, it was playing with you. And when you finally see that, the tears and the laughter meet, and you understand the whole show is sacred. Even your confusion is holy. Even your fear is part of the joke, because it proves how deeply the divine can believe its own disguise. Now, this isn't to make light of life's weight. It's to remind you that its weight is made of light. The seriousness we cling to, the need to be right, to win, to dominate, that's the dreamer, taking the dream too literally. Once you laugh, really laugh, the spell breaks, and you see that the world is not a courtroom, but a carnival. It's not an exam, but a play. And the whole point was never to pass the test, it was to dance the dance. That's why all the great mystics end up with a grin. Buddha, Christ, Lao Tzu, all of them, at the heart of their wisdom, had a twinkle in the eye. They understood the holy trick, that the divine hides itself perfectly only to delight in being found again. You, right now, are that same divine spark, pretending not to know, just for the joy of rediscovering yourself in every sunrise, in every laugh, in every breath. And when the laughter comes, that full-bodied, tearful, uncontrollable laughter that shakes your soul, know this: that's God laughing through you. The dreamer waking up inside its own dream, delighted to find itself once more. Because the universe was never serious. It only pretended to be, so the joke would be worth the telling. There comes a moment in this grand simulation, this divine dream, not in the heavens, not in the stars, but right here behind your very eyes. At first it's subtle, a faint sense that all the rushing and striving might not be the point. A whisper that says, perhaps I'm not only this character I've been playing, and you begin to notice the thoughts, the emotions, the body all moving, dancing, acting on their own. You watch them as though from a quiet seat in the audience. That's the moment when the player starts to wake up within the game. Now, most people, when they first glimpse this, think they've discovered a way out. They say, I must escape the illusion. I must transcend the simulation. But that's just another move in the game, the final disguise of the ego, pretending to be spiritual. You don't need to leave the game, my dear. You only need to remember that it's a game. For when you do, the whole thing changes. You don't stop playing, you start playing consciously. It's what we might call lucid living. Just as a lucid dreamer realizes that the dream is not a prison but a playground, you begin to live with a strange, joyous freedom. You can still weep, still love, still stumble and fall, but something inside stays perfectly still, watching, smiling, knowing. That stillness is not apart from the play. It's the awareness in which the play happens. It doesn't resist what unfolds. It allows it all. The joy, the sorrow, the victory, the loss, all arise, dance for a while, and dissolve back into silence. You see, awakening isn't about becoming superhuman. It's about becoming utterly human. When you realize you are both the player and the game, you stop trying to win and start enjoying the art of playing. You move not from ambition, but from curiosity. You love not to possess, but to participate. You speak not to persuade, but to sing. And here's the marvelous thing. When you live like that, you discover that everything begins to cooperate with you. The game, once full of obstacles, now flows. Coincidences appear. Paths open. The music of life, which once seemed discordant, falls into rhythm. Not because you've gained control, but because you've stopped trying to. You've remembered that the dancer and the dance were never separate. Now, this awakening does not mean you float through life in some glassy-eyed bliss. You'll still stub your toe, pay your bills, and perhaps argue with your loved ones. But underneath, there's laughter, the quiet laughter of knowing you are dreaming. You can play your role with passion, but no longer with desperation. When the player awakens within the game, something extraordinary happens. Compassion arises naturally, because you begin to see yourself in every face, every form, every movement. You realize that every other character is you in another disguise, the same consciousness, playing another scene, and so the boundaries soften. The walls fall away. You no longer need to be right, because you understand there was never really an argument, only the universe talking to itself in different languages. When you see this, life becomes luminous. The tree you pass on your morning walk is no longer just a tree. It's the cosmos stretching itself into green. The person beside you on the bus is no longer a stranger. They are another portal through which the universe peers at itself. Every sound, every color, every breath is a thread in the same eternal tapestry woven of your own awareness. And this, my friends, is what the mystics meant when they said, be in the world, but not of it. They didn't mean withdrawal, they meant wonder. They didn't mean indifference, they meant intimacy, to live fully awake in the middle of the dream. For when you awaken within the game, you stop asking, what is the purpose of life? Because life itself becomes the answer. the question dissolves into the experience of being. And that's when you finally understand that enlightenment was never about rising above the human story. It was about seeing that the human story is the divine consciousness exploring itself in form and forgetting itself just enough to feel the thrill of remembering. So go on, live, love, stumble, laugh, play your role with grace, knowing that behind every line you speak, the cosmic player smiles, because every word, every breath, every heartbeat is the sound of God remembering, oh yes, that's me. When the player awakens inside the game, a curious transformation happens. You find that you no longer need commandments carved in stone, because the law is written in your laughter. The moment you see that life is a play, you might worry, does that mean nothing matters? Quite the opposite. When you realize the play is sacred, every gesture becomes holy. A child's cry, a stranger's smile, even the sound of the rain on your roof, each is a note in the same eternal melody. You begin to act not out of duty, but out of delight. Not because you should be kind, but because you can't help it. When you know that every person is another mask of yourself, how could you wish them harm? To hurt another is to bite your own tongue. To deceive another is to hide from your own reflection. This is what I mean by the ethics of play. It is not a moral system handed down from above, but a natural grace that flows when you stop pretending to be separate. The river does not decide whether to nourish the field, it simply flows, and everything near it is fed. So when you awaken, love moves through you just as naturally. Now, this doesn't mean you must become soft or sentimental. Sometimes the play calls for thunder, sometimes for silence. Even the storm serves the sky. Compassion does not always smile. It can roar. It can draw boundaries. It can say no with clarity and peace. But behind it all there is no hatred, only understanding. This too is me. You see, the awakened player does not cling to the script. They improvise. They listen to the rhythm of life and respond in harmony. If another stumbles, they reach out a hand not to prove goodness, but because it feels natural to keep the dance moving. If conflict arises, they do not ask who is right, but rather, how can the music continue? This is why the wise seem effortless. They act without anxiety because they know there is no scoreboard. In a play with no winners or losers, the only tragedy is forgetting to enjoy it. When you live in this spirit, morality ceases to be a cage and becomes a celebration. Kindness is no longer a virtue to achieve, it is the fragrance of freedom. And generosity, honesty, forgiveness, they are not obligations. They are the ways in which the universe remembers itself through you. So go ahead, play beautifully. Laugh when the moment is absurd. Weep when the heart breaks. Stand firm when the world shakes, but through it all, stay awake. For the awakened player carries a secret smile, knowing that even the hardest scenes are made of light. And when others ask, how do you live so freely? You'll have no doctrine to give them. You might only shrug and say, I realized I was both actor and audience. And the only rule is to love the show. When you peer deeply enough into the workings of this game, when every illusion and equation has been peeled away, you find that the code at the heart of it all is not made of numbers or laws. It's love, not love as sentiment, not the fluttering romance of songs, but love as the movement of unity, the force that draws everything back to itself. It is gravity for the soul, the attraction of the one toward the one through the disguise of the many. You see, love is the reason the universe bothered to play at all. It is the itch of eternity to experience itself, the curiosity of the infinite wondering, what would it feel like to be everything? So it divides, multiplies, spins off stars and people and possibilities, all to feel the joy of reunion in endless variety. Every act of creation is an act of love. When the atom joins another, when the seed splits the earth, When two beings meet and truly see one another, that is the code running, whispering through all forms. Come closer. Remember, even conflict is love in camouflage. For it is the friction that awakens awareness, the tension that makes the string vibrate and sing. Without it, there would be no melody, only silence unplayed. You might have noticed that when you fall deeply in love, time dissolves. The past and future lose their grip, and you exist entirely in the now. That's because love and presence are the same thing. Love is consciousness turned inward upon itself until it recognizes, ah, there you are, me again. This is why the mystics speak of God as love, not as an emotion possessed by a being, but as the being itself. The cosmos doesn't have love, it is love, dreaming itself in a trillion faces. The galaxies whirl for the sheer joy of whirling. The heartbeat echoes the rhythm of creation. The breath of every creature is the same wind moving through endless forms. And here's the tender truth. When you see this, you realize that every search you've ever made for happiness, for truth, for home, has been the search for love in disguise. The lover chasing the beloved, the scientist chasing understanding, the artist chasing beauty, all of them are expressions of the same yearning, the universe longing to touch itself again. Now, the beautiful irony is that this love cannot be lost. You can ignore it, deny it, fight it, but you can never fall outside it, because you are it. Even your loneliness is made of love, love playing the role of absence so that reunion can be felt. So, when the player awakens within the game and asks, what keeps this whole thing running? The answer is not energy, nor matter, nor data. It is affection, the gentle insistence of unity that pulls everything home. Every equation hums it. Every particle dances it. Every heart beats it. That is why forgiveness feels like peace. Why gratitude feels like expansion. Why laughter feels like light. Because each is a brief alignment with the original code. And in that recognition, life stops being a puzzle to solve and becomes a song to sing. You begin to see that the game was never about escaping the simulation, but about remembering the music to let love express itself through your hands, your words, your silence. So when you next gaze at a stranger, a flower, a cloud drifting by, see if you can sense it, that subtle pulse connecting all things. That's the heartbeat of the universe, the code humming behind every pixel of existence. And when you feel it, don't analyze it, just smile. Because in that moment, the programmer, the code, and the creation are perfectly aligned, one endless movement of love, recognizing itself. And now, my friends, we arrive at the end of the tale, though of course there are no endings, only circles. Every story must fold back into itself, every note fade into the next, every breath give itself away to make room for another. Even the stars, those burning thoughts of the universe, must one day cool and return to silence. We call this death, and we tremble before it. But what is death, really, except the code returning to its source? When you close your eyes for the last time, you do not vanish. You simply wake up from one dream into another. The player takes a bow, the lights dim, and the stage goes dark, not in tragedy, but in rest. For the same awareness that lived your life will stir again, somewhere, somehow, under another name, wearing another face. The tide recedes only to come rushing back. And so do you. If you understand that, you will see that dying is no more frightening than sleeping, and being born no more miraculous than waking. The universe never stops breathing in and out. Creation and dissolution. Inhale and exhale. Each heartbeat of eternity births 1,000 worlds, and with each pause, gathers them home again. The Hindus call it Leela, the divine play, not a grim struggle, but a rhythm. And when you know the rhythm, you no longer resist its changes. You see that loss and renewal are one motion, the hand closing only so it can open again. To fear death is to forget the pattern. To see death clearly is to remember that what you are can never die, for you are not a body, nor a story, nor a moment in time. You are the awareness in which birth and death arise like waves upon the same ocean, and when that is seen, the whole game glows with tenderness. You love more deeply because you know everything you touch is fleeting, and precisely because it is fleeting, it shines. A cherry blossom is beautiful not in spite of its brevity, but because of it. The fragility of life is not a flaw, it is the artistry of impermanence. So, the great return is not punishment, it is celebration. It is the infinite remembering itself through the cycle of forgetting. When the game ends, it doesn't stop, it begins again. Freshly curious, newly amazed, perhaps as a child in another time, or as a star, or as a whisper of wind across the grass. And maybe, just maybe, one day you will sit again, as you are now, listening to these words, hearing yourself reminded that it was all a magnificent joke, and that you, yes, you, were the punchline and the poet, the dreamer and the dreamed. In that realization, all striving ceases. You rest, not in resignation, but in wonder. You see that the return was never away, the traveler never left home. Home was not a destination. It was what was watching all along. So, take a deep breath now. Feel it move in and out, that is, the universe breathing you. You are not inside the universe. The universe is inside you, and it's smiling. And when you finally lay your head down, whether tonight or 1,000 lifetimes from now, remember, you are not falling into darkness. You are falling into yourself. You are going home. And when you awaken again, because you will find the game waiting, shimmering, playful as ever, whispering, "Welcome back, old friend. Let's play."